Lonsec wishes to remind that the information we provide on our portfolios is general advice, and we encourage investors to read the PDS or seek professional advice prior to making any decisions on their investments.
Hi, I'm Martin McGrath from Financial Edge Group. Today, we're fortunate enough to be sitting down with one of the experts in the industry. We work very closely with Lonsec, and we're fortunate to have Lucas to help kind of answer some questions about what's happening in the market at the moment. And so let's dive into some questions with Lucas. What do you think kind of is the concern in the markets? We're at all-time highs or close enough to. We've seen, I suppose, a bit of pullback in testing the waters in the last few weeks. Do you think, I don't know, another pandemic outbreak or a government thing or a political item around the world being potentially that biggest risk factor? Obviously hard to know. There's always factors that change the markets. But is there anything that you guys, I suppose, are keeping your eye on or certainly conscious of?
Absolutely. So I think, there's always risk there when you invest in money, and ultimately you get paid, hopefully, for taking on that risk. But if in terms of what we're focusing on, probably the one key one we're looking at is policy risk. So one of the things that no doubt maybe some of your clients have seen in the papers and so forth is everyone's talking about inflation, costs of products going up, oil prices going up, all of these sort of things. Now, that's not unexpected. As the pandemic has sort of played out, one of the challenges has been that a lot of supply chains have been impacted. So the ability to move goods and services across, internationally across borders, there's shortages, and that has put up prices. I think the concern is that maybe there's a more structural, long-term impact on inflation. And I think, so the biggest risk is, as I mentioned before, interest rates have been very low. And one of the risks is that we get inflation that gets beyond just supply chain issues and more structural, and the central banks don't respond in time. That's a real plausible risk, and it's a hard one to predict. Other risks, look, there's always the chance of COVID, I guess, ramping up again, depending on where your clients are located. I mean, we've all been sort of in lockdown at different periods of time. We've seen, that has hampered some industries to a large extent. Interestingly, when we look at the data from an Australian perspective over the last several quarters, we have noticed the negative impact of lockdowns on some of those economic indicators, whether it's manufacturing or whether it's the services industries. They have been adversely impacted. So, if we were to go back into that environment, no doubt that would have a negative impact on some industries. And then the final one that you sort of alluded to was, geopolitical risk. That is a bit of a harder one. Geopolitical risk is always ever present. Obviously, the one that's sort of focused at the moment is China. So we don't try to, we do discuss it, but we're trying to sort of really sort of understand what would be the longer term implications, because you don't want to also be too reactive from an investment perspective, because we just live in a world where there is always geopolitical risk, and it actually sometimes isn't always bad for markets.